close it up with a couple sports headlines.
Well, it's interesting because we got two basketball ones, and I'm going to talk about the Olympic basketball team, John, the Dream Team 2024, right? I mean, last night they played a game against Canada, which has a lot of guys who play in the NBA. They play up in Canada too, and they play in Italy, and they play all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. But they're playing against Canada. And 20,000 people were there in Las Vegas to watch this game. I think that might have set a record, especially given what it is. I mean, this is just a game between two countries. This has nothing to do with the Olympics. This is just to get things started and going and everything else. Anyway, all that being said, there are some superstars out there, John. You've got Steph Curry, you got Joel Embiid, you've got Anthony Edwards, you've got LeBron, all these great players, right, playing for the U.S. So hence the Dream Team 2024. Here's who else they have playing, and I wanted to run this by you. If you're the Boston Celtics owner and you see out there on there as part of the team, three different players who all play for Boston, you've got Drew Holiday, you've got Jason Tatum, and you got Derek White. All players who played at Boston. Not all of them played exactly the same amount of games as each other, but let's just kind of round it and say they played, if you include the playoffs, and all the way through, John, 85 to 90 games of basketball. Now these guys are going to be playing however many more games they've got, and it's coming right after the end of the season. Would you be concerned if you were an owner? I just throw this out there because I think it's kind of fun to kick around, but you're paying Tatum $330 million, right? And he's over there playing after playing 90-plus games. Are you concerned about that at all? Does that worry you as far as fatigue and possible injury and all the things that maybe could happen? Maybe. I'm not saying they will, but it's a possibility.
Well, the only thing I think that he should be worried about, Pete, the owner, is injury, because fatigue for these guys, some of the most elite athletes on earth, and they're not going to be playing games, Pete, for the Celtics for several months. So I'm not concerned about that. But I am always, in the back of your mind, you're always a little worried about what if this guy comes down wrong on somebody's foot and ends up either breaking an ankle, stretching a ligament in his ankle and or his knees. Those are things you do have to worry about. Now, one thing that maybe the Olympic team should be a little worried about is, yes, they beat a good Canadian team. They're a medal contender. Puerto Rico, by the way, Pete, they're going to the Olympics with their team too. Not every country that fields a team can actually get there. It's like soccer. They have to play in. This wasn't a play-in game last night. Both these teams are expected to do very well at the Olympics. But I'll say, Pete, 7 for 23 on threes. They're going to have to move that percentage up.
Yeah.
Because 7 for 23 doesn't get it done, especially if you're up against somebody who's having a hot night. That would be enough basically for you to lose that game because that's not where you need to be. You need to be a lot closer to 50-50 on those threes.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think people don't realize, one thing that the Timberwolves showed us this past year is they play great defense. Anthony Edwards being one of them, and he's an absolute freak out there. He doesn't want people to score. He'll do whatever he can. And defensively, they were one of the best, if not the best team throughout the entire season last year from a defensive perspective. So that's where all the work really comes in. All right, next one, John. Breaking the bank in the NBA. And why do I use that expression, breaking the bank? Well, they just got a new TV deal. Their previous decade deal was 9 years, $24 billion. That's not such a bad contract, right? I mean, it's pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. Well, now they're in the midst of a new media deal. 11 years, $76 billion. They're bringing NBC back into the NBA and all the rest of it. It's going to be pretty interesting. That's a really massive number. So for all the flack that I do give the commish of the NBA, he's doing one thing right. This media whole thing, he's doing a great job for the players, for the teams, for the owners. And you're going to see numbers that are going to be eye-popping into the future, John, as far as like how much guys are going to get paid per year with that new money that's going to be coming in there. And it gives them stability, right? I mean, they've got all these different outlets where they have themselves in the media. So that could be great. They also have one other thing that's going to be pretty interesting. Now the speculation is, are they going to add more teams with all this money and all this stuff that's going on within the NBA? Here's the cities that everybody's looking at. Las Vegas, because everybody else in sports has gone there. For the people who don't realize it, the Oakland A's are going to be there pretty soon. They'll be the Las Vegas A's. But you've got Montreal, you've got Vancouver, you've got Kansas City and Seattle, which used to have a team. But what do you think? I mean, the expansion, if you were to pick two of those 4 or 5 different cities, John, where would you go? I think I'd go Vegas for sure. I think you just have to. And I kind of like Kansas City. Why not? I mean, they're very supportive. They have the greatest fans maybe in the NFL. Why not give them a shot?
Yeah. And I like Seattle as well, Pete.
Yeah.
So I love both of those for you. I like the idea that Vegas is where all those players want to play in Vegas too.
Yeah.
And it's not just for taxes. It's a great place to live.
Yeah.
I mean, fabulous restaurants, entertainment, nightlife for clubbing and all that. And these are young men. They want to be in a place like this. That makes it a little tougher for your pick in Kansas City because there's not quite as much of that in Kansas City. But maybe that'll keep the players more focused.
Well, I'll tell you, rabid fans, John. Rabid. I mean, honestly, you and I have talked about this many times when we've talked about the NFL. What stadium is the most incredible? Who has the greatest sound? The most people that have been probably having a pretty good time before the game starts. I mean, obviously Buffalo, obviously Philadelphia. I mean, there's a lot of different places.
Dallas. They got a rock and roll band on one side of that stadium, folks on the outside. And Pete and I, we were down there, guests of Jerry Jones. And on the other side, they had country western. So whatever kind of, fun music that you want to listen to, it is a party at AT&T Stadium, let me tell you.
Yeah, but Kansas City is rocking, man. I mean, that stadium, John, it's like college. It's like 90,000 people that all want to be there, and they absolutely live for their Chiefs. I mean, and I say that as a guy, I didn't play for Kansas City. I got no reason to say all that other than the fact that I got to be honest, and I've been in a lot of NFL stadiums. I think that one's the loudest, the most active, some of the best fans. They're knowledgeable. All of that goes into what Kansas City has. So they could do that with the NBA, and they wouldn't be all that far away from Oklahoma City and some of the rest of them.